Episode 48, The Revenge.
Not so arrogant now, are you?
Jeff looked at Brian like he was a stray dog.
So I assume Mr. Sanchez told you what to do, right? So get started.
Yes.
Brian bit his lip so hard that it started bleeding. He straightened up, took a deep breath, and then lowered himself to the floor in front of Jeff.
Master,
He said.
I beg your forgiveness.
He groveled again and said,
Master, please forgive my stupidity.
and then,
Master, please forgive me.
none of the bystanders mocked Brian. Confused, they watched Jeff with a mixture of respect, envy, and admiration.
This handsome young man was so powerful, but who was he? And why was such an important man like Mr. Sanchez so respectful toward him?
Jeff looked down at the bleeding Brian with a faint smile. He glanced around at the dirty floor that Brian would have to lick clean with his tongue, and he felt a little sympathy for him. Still, Brian had no one to blame but himself. Jeff wasn't in the mood to watch him lick the floor clean. Instead, he returned to the kitchen. Lelaine had already changed her clothes, so he took her hand and they left the restaurant. Reunited now, they were happy to be together. They chatted and laughed, and everything seemed to be good again. Jeff held Lelaine's hand as they strolled along the streets of New York, noticing how much weight she'd lost recently. A trace of tenderness rose in his heart.
Lelaine, I won't allow you to suffer anymore.
He lifted her hand to his mouth and lightly kissed it.
Okay.
She replied meekly. Her heart filled with joy, but her stomach picked that moment to rumble loudly.
Your stomach really knows how to spoil the mood, Lelaine.
He teased her.
And here I am, being all romantic.
She pretended to glare at him and lightly punched his chest.
Don't laugh.
His lips twisted as he tried to hold back his laughter.
If you laugh again, well, if you laugh, I'll stop liking you.
She tossed her head and began to walk away.
I'm just teasing.
He said.
Come on, let's go and get dinner. There's a great place just over there.
He won't drag her somewhere nice and feed her properly. She lightly smacked the back of his head.
You still intend to repay me?
She asked.
Then you need to save your money.
Lelaine, I really am rich.
He said, rubbing at his head. But she just watched him helplessly, clearly not believing him. Eventually, they decided to go back to the university.
Jeff, can we eat by Ramsey Lake?
She asked, looking at the campus. After being away for a while, she felt a little anxious about being back. He agreed, and they walked over to her favorite spot by the water.
Okay, sit here and wait for me. I'll go get some food and return in a few minutes.
He smiled and ran off toward the cafeteria.
Wait,
She called,
I'll go with you.
but he had already run off and was too far away to hear her. She shook her head and sat down on the big rock. She looked out at the rippling surface of the lake, and for the first time in days, she managed to relax.
Well, if it isn't that little dog Lelaine.
Came a cold female voice. Lelaine shivered. She turned around and saw Scarlett and her two friends, Layla and Gloria, walking toward her. Alarmed, she quickly stood up.
It really is her.
Scarlett said with disdainful smiles. The girls moved closer.
Little dog, I thought you quit school. So why did you come back? Did you miss us too much? Do you want us to look after you again?
Lelaine didn't dare provoke Scarlett. She just wanted to get away as soon as possible.
Hey, where do you think you're going?
Scarlett moved to block her path.
Is this how you treat your roommate?
Without Lelaine around, they hadn't had nearly as much fun. Now that she was back, how could they resist toying with her?
Scarlett, do you think she came to find Jeff?
Gloria asked. When Scarlett saw Lelaine's expression, a trace of panic flashed in her eyes. And then her gaze turned vicious.
She really is looking for that jerk.
When Jeff had burst into their dorm, he had insulted Scarlett, and she wasn't going to forget that. She had originally considered getting someone to beat up Jeff when he was off campus. But she hadn't expected him to hide in the dorm for so long and not come out, and she hadn't dared to go into the dorm after him. She smirked as her gaze swept over Lelaine, and she realized she could use her to lure Jeff into the open. She took out her cell phone, made a call, and asked someone to come out to the university.
You bitch.
She said, glaring at Lelaine.
You're with that loser who dared to hit me when he burst into my dorm. No one gets to do that to me. No one bullies me. I'm untouchable. And yet he actually dared to hit me.
She grabbed Lelaine by the hair.
This is how he grabbed me the other day, and yet that loser treats you like something precious. Well, let's see how he feels once I'm finished with you.
She slapped Lelaine's face. Seeing Lelaine try to get away, Scarlett felt extremely powerful.
Jeff.
Lelaine shouted.
Hey, that little bitch is calling for her dog.
Scarlett laughed as she viciously tugged at Lelaine's hair.
Come on, yell louder. I'll let you go if you scream. Do you think I'm afraid of that loser boyfriend of yours? Well, I'm not. To prove it, I'll beat him up in front of everyone.
She slapped Lelaine's face a few more times. Then she let Layla and Gloria hold Lelaine, leaving Scarlett free to beat her. The commotion began to attract the attention of other students. Scarlett was well known at school. Everyone knew that she was connected to a gang, so they didn't dare to interfere.
Stupid bitch.
Scarlett taunted.
This is all because that loser of yours hit me.
He turned to her friends.
Bring her over here.
She watched Gloria and Layla pull Lelaine toward the lake. And then they pushed her face into the water.
You stink. Let me help you get washed.
Scarlett signaled what she wanted from Layla and Gloria, who sneered at Lelaine. Both girls exerted force to push Lelaine's head further into the water. After 10 seconds, they pulled her head back up. Before she could even take a breath of air, Madison slapped her.
Do it again.
Scarlett ordered. Once again, the moment Lelaine came out of the water, Scarlett struck her hard. Between the cold water and the stinging slaps, Lelaine's face hurts. Her entire body was drenched, and water was inside her ears and nose. She was suffering. The other students couldn't bear to watch any longer, but none of them stepped forward to stop it. Poor Lelaine was pushed into the water again. Time passed. 10 seconds, 20 seconds, 30 seconds. Gloria and Layla began to pull Lelaine out, but stopped when Scarlett yelled.
No, not yet.
40 seconds, 50 seconds, 60 seconds. Little bubbles appeared on the surface of the lake, and Lelaine's hands frantically thrashed, sending water flying everywhere.
Keep going.
Scarlett yelled, her eyes bright with excitement as she watched. She was enjoying every moment of this. 1 minute and 10 seconds. 1 minute and 20 seconds. Lelaine stopped trashed and turned her head to look at the two girls holding her down.
Madison, we have to go.
Gloria said.
She's really in trouble.
Keep going.
Scarlett demanded.
Don't worry. If anything happens, I'll take the blame.
She felt giddy with happiness. Lelaine went still.
What happened? Is she dead?
Someone whispered.
If we didn't help her, does that make us accomplices?
Came another whisper.
A normal person can hold their breath for 2 to 3 minutes.
Someone said.
She won't die. And if she does, then it's her fault for having weak lungs.
As the crowd talked among themselves, a deafening roar came from nearby.
Let her go.
Jeff threw away the burgers he was carrying and ran toward the lake, knocking over a few of the onlookers as he rushed into the water. He punched each of the girls who were holding Lelaine, and then he dragged her out of the water.
Lelaine, are you okay? Answer me.
Jeff stared at Lelaine, anxiously, waiting for her to speak. Her face was pale, and there were no signs of life. Jeff couldn't stop shaking. It seemed as if she was already gulped. She looked as if she was already dead.
Lelaine?
Jeff held his hand below her nose, checking to see if she was breathing. A chill traveled down his spine, and his heart skipped a few beats. He couldn't feel a single breath. Feeling numb, Jeff carried her over to the grass, gently put her down, and began attempting to resuscitate her. He breathed air deep into her mouth and pressed against her chest.
Lelaine, you can't leave me.
He thought.
You haven't eaten the burger I bought for you, and I wanted to sit by the lake and watch the sunset with you. You haven't met my family yet, and I haven't taken you to Cafe Adriatico for dinner.
He breathed for her again, then again. His face was turning red, and he started sweating. Even his veins had started to bulge from the strain. He kept going for 10 minutes, but Lelaine still wasn't breathing. She just lay there on the grass, not moving. He refused to stop. Tears flowed from his eyes, but he still kept trying. If she didn't wake up, he would simply continue until he died of exhaustion.
You idiot. The little bitch is already dead. It's time to give up.
Scarlett hadn't intended to kill Lelaine, but there was nothing she could do about it now. Luckily, Lelaine was just a nobody. Scarlett's family would pay someone a little money, and she would avoid jail. It would all just go away. Jeff stopped, finally realizing it was hopeless. He looked down at Lelaine's face, a strange sense of calm settling over him. He gently put Lelaine on the ground, stood up and turned around to look at Scarlett. Then he began to walk toward her.
What are you doing?
Scarlett looked at him. His expression was completely devoid of emotion. She retreated step by step in fear.
Don't come any closer. I'm warning you, if you touch me, you'll regret it.
He continued to advance on her with murder in his eyes. No one noticed that Lelaine, who was still lying on the grass, had moved one finger.